Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is part 57 of ASP.NET Core tutorial. In this video, we will discuss the two types of 404 errors and how to handle them in ASP.NET Core MVC. There are two types of 404 errors and here is the first type. Resource with the specified ID does not exist. This type of 404 errors occur when you cannot find employee, customer, product, etc. with the provided ID. Let's understand this with an example. At the moment, we are on the list view of our application. Where we see the full list of employees. Now, when I click on any of the view button here, we are redirected to /home/details/ the ID of the employee, whose details we want to view. At the moment, within our database, we have an employee with ID 2, so we see his detail as expected. Before proceeding further, did anyone notice that when we click the view button of the employee, we redirected to the details view of that particular employee? Here you can see, but why we are being showed this big image or photo of the employee? Why is this so? So the problem is that, go back to your Visual Studio and here the problem is in detail.cshtml. Here the class card.image, it should be removed and go to the site.css file and copy this image thumbnail and paste it here. And build the solution or save the changes. It is better to build the solutions always. Now see the effect. We will get our image in a proper size. Okay. So we can see the image in proper size with these three buttons. Now we are redirected to /home/details/to the ID of the employee whose detail we want to view. At the moment, within our database, we have an employee with ID 2, so we see his detail as expected. Now let's see what is going to happen if we provide an ID that does not exist within our database. I know for sure we don't have an employee with ID 99. So change it to 99. And see what happens. Here we should have a page crash, but we are again redirected to the detail view. Right now, our view action always returns a home details view model, even if the employee does not exist. So Razor gets a null model object with employees is equal to null. That's why the view renders empty fields. So you can see there is nothing, there is no name for that employee with ID 99. Even the ID is not specified 99, not an email, etc. This is also an error page. because we see no detail of this employee with ID 99. Okay, actually, in a proper manner, there should be a page crash. Okay, but because the null conditional operator in our details.chtml prevent the null reference exceptions. Where is the null conditional operator? Go back to the .chtml file. This is the null conditional operator. This question mark is the null conditional operator. If we want the application to throw an error page crash when the employee does not exist, we need to stop using the null conditional operator, this null conditional operator, but then we get a green line squiggly error. So it is better to keep the null operator and explicitly throw an exception in the controller when no employee is found. Means we can force a crash-like behavior through new null reference exception, employee not found. Okay, if we want a page crash. Right now, this is also a kind of error because there is no mention of name, ID, email, department. That means this employee with ID 99 does not exist in our database. So we are passing an ID value 99 from the URL to the detail action method of our home controller. So if we take a look at the details action method, where is the detail action method? In the home controller. In the detail action method, this method receives the ID value. This method receives the ID value. The method receives the ID value 99. We are then constructing an instance of home details. View model, and then calling get employee, and then calling get employee method on our employee repository, passing it ID 99, passing it ID 99. This method is going to return null because we do not have an employee with ID 99. So the employee property on our home details view model instance is null, which we are then passing to the view. So the view receives the instance of home details view model. We know employee property is null, and on this null reference we are invoking photo path property. We are invoking photo path property, which is obviously result in this detail in this home detail view model. The employee does not exist, so Razor gets a non-null model object with employee is equal to null. That's why the view renders empty fields instead of page crashing. The null conditional operator in our detail.html prevents the null reference exception. So that is why we see this page instead of page crashing. So what do we want to do? Well, first check if an employee with the provided ID exists. If the employee does not exist, then we want to redirect the user to a custom error view which display a meaningful error message. Maybe something like we cannot find the employee with ID equals 99, and perhaps provide a link which allows the user to navigate to the list view so he could see the full list of available employees. Now the first thing that we want to do is in the details action method of our home controller. Let's refactor. Let's refactor. Let's refactor this code a bit so it is easier to check if the employee is null. Let's first create a variable of type employee. Let's create a variable of employee, type employee. Let's call the instance also employee. And then on our employee repository, call get employee method. Call get employee method. And pass it the ID value. And pass it the ID value. That we have received from the URL. If employee is null, then we know we have not found the employee. If employee is null, then we know we have not found the employee. What do we want to do in that case? Well, we want to set the response status code to 404. response status code. And then return a custom error view. For that, let's use the view function. Employee not found. Employee not found, we don't have this view yet. We will create it in just a bit. Let's also pass the provided ID value. Let's also pass the provided ID value to our custom error view, so we could display it in the message to the user. If employee is not null, the execution comes to this line where we are constructing an instance of home detail view model. Now, instead of calling getEmployee method on the employee repository again, let's use this instance to populate the employee property, this employee property. Finally, pass the model instance to the detail views. Our next step is to add this custom error view model. But before that, we see a green squiggly. Why is this green squiggly here? The green squiggly under id.value with the warning nullable value type may be null. Happens because the compiler see that ID is nullable. That ID is nullable. Null conditional operator. Null conditional operator. That ID is nullable, and you are accessing dot value without checking if it has a value first. To fix this warning, you should check if ID has a value before accessing dot value. So check if ID has a value before accessing dot value. handle the case when ID is null. Example, return a default view or redirect return redirect to action. Index. Okay. This way, I guarantee ID value is safe to use because you checked ID dot has value first. Now one more challenge is that what we see error occurs because our method signature specify a return type of view result, but redirect to action index returns a redirect to action result, which is not compatible with view result. To fix this, change the return type of the details method from view result to the more general I action result. Okay, the error gone. Now our next step is to add this custom error view employee not found. So let's add it to the home folder. Go to the home folder, add razor view and name it we want employee not found. Employee not found. From the controller, we are passing the employee. From the controller, we are passing the employee ID value. From the controller, we are passing the employee ID value, which is an integer to our custom error view. So the model for this view is an integer. So the model for this view is an integer. Next, we want to set the page title. If we take a look at our layout page, notice we are using the value that we have in the title property of the view bag object to set as the page title. To set as the page title. So to set this page title for our custom error view, we need to do is set the title property on the view bag. Set the title property on the view bag object. Title property on the view bag object. We want our custom error page to look like this. 404 not found. 404 not found error, a horizontal line, and then the message employee with ID is equal to 99 cannot be found. We are going to use Bootstrap 4 class to style this. To style this error view. First, we want to create a div element. And use the Bootstrap styling classes. Alert danger. We want to include some margin both on the top and bottom of this div element. To get the margin at the top of this div element, let's use empty-1. Empty stand for margin top. Similarly, let's use MB-1. MB stand for margin bottom. Let's close the div element. Let's include an H4 element with a message 404 not found. Not found error. Next, we want a horizontal line followed by that an H5 element. The message that we want the message that we want here is employee with ID equals with ID equals div class alert why is this showing error div alert alert danger okay why we were getting an error okay class alert danger empty mb now h4 404 not found horizontal line h5 employee with id is equal to id is equal to get the id of the employee. Let's use the model object at model cannot be found cannot be found at model with the capital letter M cannot found. Finally, let's also include a link at the bottom which allows the user to navigate to the list view so he could finally Let's also include a link at the bottom which allows the user to navigate to the list view so he could see the full list of available employee. Let's include an anchor element. Let's include an anchor element. When this is clicked, we want to navigate to the index action. Index action of our home controller. Of our home controller. For styling this anchor element as a button, let's use BTN and BTN outline success. Let's finally the text on the button is click here to see the list of all employees. At this point, let's save all our changes and build this solution and take a look at browser. So build this solution, save the changes, build the solution. Before that, navigate to the employee details. We see this non-existed employee 99. So with no details of this employee. So we want the error page instead of this page. Okay, now build the solution and see the result. Back to the browser and take a look at the browser. Notice though we have built the solution, so then error page will, this non-existent employee will automatically reloaded or refreshed. We see our custom error view. Notice the error message. The ID value that we have here is 99, which we have in the message here. The ID value 99 which we have here is 99, which we have in the message here. If we change it to 990, and issue a request, that is reflected again in the message box. At the moment the width of 990. At the moment the width is perfect. There is no issue as we have in our site.css file button.focus. We have already this button focus and button active focus, etc. So we do not see any difference in this button. So if you see any difference in this button, then make changes in your site.css file. Copy this code from here and paste in your file. And you could also make a change here, detail.html file. Here you can specify. Here you can specify button is fixed. Specify auto in the anchor. Here you should specify style, width, auto. But I don't need this right now because my button is in correct position and with correct height and width. So now what? When this button is clicked, we are redirected to the list view. We have just seen how to handle we have just seen how to handle this type of 404 error. Resource with the specified ID does not exist. In this case, we know the user is looking for an employee, so we display a custom error message that is more meaningful. The custom error message. This is the custom error message, which is more meaningful. Something like this: employee with ID 99. Employee with ID 99 cannot be found. There is another type of 404 error. The provided URL does not match with any route in our application. Maybe something like this: localhost/foo/bar. This URL does not match with any route within our application. So if we try to navigate to /foo/bar, /foo//bar, notice we get a 404 error. We will discuss how to handle this type of 404 error in our next video. That's it in this video. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day.